All right, so we are recording now, so we can go ahead and get started. So to everybody that is logged on, just to let you know, we do have you all muted right now. We will take questions at the end, but we are really very grateful for all of you guys that came in. You know, we understand this is an evening. And as volunteers, you're giving up your time, so we are very appreciative of that. But today we're going to kind of go over some of the logistics and things to consider when you're hosting a Learn to Shoot event. I'm going to go ahead and start it off. My name is Katie Koslich. I am the Illinois Outreach Coordinator. I've been doing this for 5 years now, so I've seen quite a few Learn to Shoot events. I'm still, after 5 years, I'm no means the expert, but it is really great having this position. I've kind of picked up a few things along the way because you get to see quite a variety, from the 10 miles from the Wisconsin border in Illinois to 10 miles from the Kentucky border, and you're still in Illinois. So I'm seeing quite a variety of these. Kim, I will let you introduce yourself and take it away and have you get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Kim Cole. I'm the outreach coordinator here in Missouri. Same position as Katie, just a little bit different over here in Missouri. But I still handle a lot of the things with the Learn to Shoot events, Learn to Hunt, things like that. I started back in April of 2019. So I'm kind of working my way into my second year here with Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. But I've been able to come out and help with some of these Learn to Shoot events so far, and work with a lot of chapters as they plan those events. So kind of like Katie said, tonight we're going to go over the Learn to Shoot events, talk a lot about kind of some pre-planning for those and things like that. But we're excited to have everybody joining us tonight. Thanks for those of you who called in and are hanging out with us for a little bit on your Wednesday evening. So with that, I think we'll just go ahead and get started into it. Start talking about what is a Learn to Shoot event. So we want to just start at the beginning of what a Learn to Shoot event is. So when we think about that, these events are kind of meant to be an introduction to shooting. So we want to start with the basics. We want to help our participants learn more about shooting and improve their skills, and do that in a safe and conducive learning environment. So we think about experienced shooters and instructors, and those individuals are really important to have at these events. They help us provide an enriching event, give demonstrations and hands-on activities, and those are going to help our participants build skills and confidence, and hopefully we get some long-term shooters out of this too. So that's really kind of our intention with these events, is just to provide that knowledge and skills, and do that through education and just hands-on skill building activities. So some of our objectives when it comes to the Learn to Shoot events, those goals and objectives, there's 4 big things that we want our participants to kind of take home or to gain from those events. So keep these in mind as you're not only planning the events, but as you're conducting the events that day when everyone's on site. The first one is you want your participants to know who Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever are. Help them become more familiar with our organization, become more familiar with you all as a chapter, some of the work that you do locally and how you're involved with the organization and the mission. Those are all really great things to share with them, just to give participants an idea of who we are, what we do, and your role as chapters as well. So one of the things you can share with them is our mission, our Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever mission, which is Quail Forever and Pheasants Forever is dedicated to the conservation of quail, pheasants, and other wildlife through habitat improvements, public awareness, education, and land management policies and programs. So when you look at that mission, you can see where these Learn to Shoot events fit right in with what we do as an organization and what you all do as chapters. So the second thing we want people to take home from these events, they should be fun. We want to make sure our participants stay engaged. We want to encourage learning, and having a fun environment can help keep people engaged, help with that learning. But we definitely want to keep safety at the front of our minds. That's kind of our top priority with these events is safety, which is a lot of reasons we do these trainings, provide these resources, so we keep everyone familiar when it comes to safety. But again, fun events, just keep that safety in mind. The third thing, we want everybody to not only know the 4 rules of firearm safety, but be able to demonstrate those as they're going through the event that day, we want to make sure that people can show us that they know these. So you'll see in the picture that I've got, there's the 4 rules of firearm safety. We kind of say those quickly as tab K. But if you look at that, kind of spread that out, those 4 rules are: treat every firearm as if it were loaded, always point the muzzle in a safe direction, be certain of your target and what's beyond, and keep your finger outside the trigger guard until ready to shoot. So those are those 4 rules of firearm safety. It's really good to go over those first thing with your participants, have those displayed if you can, and make sure that not only you all as instructors and volunteers are practicing those 4 rules, but you're helping everyone else practice those throughout the day as well. And then that last thing, we want our participants to be able to shoot effectively when they come out of these events. And we don't necessarily just mean shoot successfully. We don't want them to come away from these events being the best clay busters around. We're more looking at having them understand those safe aspects of shooting, understand that firearm safety. We want to teach them proper technique and help them apply that. And hopefully they'll improve over time through instruction and through practice. So that's kind of what we mean by being able to shoot effectively. We're not just going for busting clays all the time. One other thing we want to mention kind of with these goals and learning objectives, these events aren't, a lot of these times these events are aimed at youth, which is excellent. And we want to keep doing those youth events, but also think about how you can host these events for shooters of all ages and not just youth. When you start opening these up to some different audiences, it gives you the opportunity to have more shooters at your event. One thing you can do is kind of work with families, encourage families to come to these learn to shoot events. When you bring people to these events as family, not only are they able to learn these new skills with a familiar group, they've got people they're comfortable with as they're learning these new skills. But when they leave that event, when they get done working with you that day, hopefully those families are going to go and take those skills they've learned, be able to support each other as they continue to learn those skills, and hopefully become long-term shooters after they come to these events with us. All right, so as you're planning your events, there are a lot of tools that we have from Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever that we provide to our chapters and to our volunteers to help you all as you plan these events and conduct them. So the first big one is the that guide to hosting a Learn to Shoot event. So you'll see a picture of it right there on the slide that we've got pulled up. This is a critical piece as you all are planning your Learn to Shoot events. There is a ton of information in there. This is the document that Katie and I used as we put this presentation together. So a lot of the information you're going to need as you're planning these events and as you're conducting them, you're going to find that in this Learn to Shoot event guide. This event guide, you can find that on the chapter resource portal that you all have access to log into as a chapter. And then we're also going to send this out after the webinar. When we send out the recording, we're going to send some of these guides and resources as well. So look for an email to come on that, but just keep that Learn to Shoot guide in mind. Let us know if you have any issues accessing that. We'll make sure to get it to you because that's really a critical piece when it comes to planning these events. Another thing I want to mention is we have our shooting sports trailers. So there's a picture of one of those down on the bottom. A lot of you might have seen these or might be familiar with these. But these are trailers that we have. We've got one in Missouri and one in Illinois. And then I know several of our chapters here in Missouri have these too. But these are basically trailers. They contain the equipment that you need to host these events. There's different kinds of firearms in there. You've got your throwers in there. There's easy up canopies for shade, different things like that. So those items that trailer is available for our chapters to use when they host these types of events. If you want to reserve the trailer from Missouri, just contact me. I'm your contact for that. And then if you want to reserve the Illinois one, just get in touch with Katie. We can help you get on the calendar for those so you've got that resource for your chapter. One other tool that we've got or resource is a mock hunt activity. And so this is an activity, there's some wooden guns that are kind of wooden demonstration guns that it comes with. some wooden bird dog cutouts, and then there's a really detailed instruction guide that comes with it, and that's meant to kind of help conduct that mock hunt activity. So this is one that you can use it at more of a learn to hunt event where you're actually going to do a hunt with it, but it comes in nice for these learn to shoots as well. It could be great for an additional station or additional rotation at your events, and it's just an extra resource that we've got when it comes to kind of teaching firearm safety and safety in the field. Another one I want to point out, you'll see that picture of it kind of at the top right, is the firearm event insurance guide. So that's a really important and really helpful document for you all as chapter volunteers. Something you'll definitely want to keep on hand for any of these events that you're going to do that are going to involve any type of firearms. We have a brand new version for fiscal year 21 that just came out. Within that insurance guide, it's got updated the volunteer coverage forms, so participant waivers, certificates to get liability, our certificate of liability insurance. There's a ton of stuff in that packet. So that's really helpful, kind of keep that close at hand. And that's going to be one that we're going to send out in an email after this webinar as well to make sure everybody's got that. Again, this is really a critical piece to have. One thing I also want to mention about the updated forms and updated waivers in this version is they now include language about COVID-19. So as you all plan these events and think about hosting these events kind of in these different circumstances, make sure to have everyone sign those new waivers, especially make sure that there are these new fiscal year 21 waivers with that COVID-19 language on it. That's really important to have everyone at events sign those waivers, not just the participants. We want to make sure we include everybody who's there, parents, volunteers, bird dog handlers, photographers, anybody. Make sure everybody at the events signs one of those participant waivers. That's real important. And then lastly on there, we listed your outreach coordinators. We want you all to remember that your outreach coordinators are here to help. So, you know, I'm here for everybody in Missouri. Katie's here for all of our volunteers in Illinois. If you have questions about these events, if you need assistance with planning or promotion or any of that type of stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll do our best to help you as we can and get you through these events, so we can help you all host successful Learn to Shoot events. All right, to kind of switch gears a little bit, I want to start talking about the planning committee. So one of the things we recommend you do is form a Learn to Shoot planning committee as you start conducting these events, or start planning these and get ready for them. Choose a group of volunteers who not only have experience with shooting sports, but who you know can work as effective instructors. We recommend keeping kind of a diverse skill set in mind. So things like comfortable speaking in front of groups or working with the public. If they have any experience with instruction, that's great. And then experience with event coordination, knowledge of firearms, firearm safety, shooting sports, and things like that. So kind of think about all of the different tasks that'll have to be done for those Learn to Shoot events, and keep those things in mind when you're planning that committee. So you get a good diverse group of people, and definitely a group of people who are committed to making sure that that event is successful and goes off without a hitch, and is a real good experience for everybody. Some other kind of considerations for planning committee members. One that we recommend would be professionals from state or federal agencies or organizations, non-governmental groups, things like that. Others that not only can help that committee, but they're going to be able to make sure, especially when you think of conservation agents or game wardens, some of the staff like that from our state agencies, they can not only help with the event with kind of the knowledge, but they can make sure that that event complies with state regulations. They're just going to be a really added resource as a partner. So make sure when you're planning that committee, keep some of those other folks in mind too, from those state or federal agencies and those other resource professionals that might be able to help out. Some other organizations that are out there, just as a potential option, something to think about, Midway Foundation, the Youth Shooting Sports Foundation through federal, NRA and other groups like that. They have, if you go to their websites, we'll send you kind of a list of some of the resources on those links. But if you go to their website, they provide support in different ways, sometimes through funding or supplies, other things like that. So there's other organizations as well that you can reach out to. Think of kind of some of those other shooting sports and hunting type organizations. And then lastly, as you are putting that planning committee together, one of the big things you want to do is designate a shooting sports coordinator. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in that next slide coming up. So when we think of the shooting sports coordinator, this is a position, when you put that committee together, we strongly recommend that you have a shooting sports coordinator. This person really, they're kind of meant to take charge of the event that day and be there just to make sure that everything goes according to plan. One thing we do strongly recommend as well is for that shooting sports coordinator, don't have them serving as an instructor or working at a station or kind of pinned down to one place. Ideally, that person should be able to move around the event. If any issues or problems come up, they need to be available to deal with them. It really just, keep things on time and overall management of the event. So definitely think about a good person to kind of to put in that shooting sports coordinator position when it comes to planning those events, just so you've got somebody available all day long to answer questions and be there when they're when something comes up, or be there when they're needed. All right, so let's talk about early planning. We can't stress enough, to start early on these. Planning is a really, really important step when it comes to these learn to shoot events or any events that you're going to host. And the more time you have to plan, the better. So we recommend that 4 to 6 months to really start kind of thinking about dates and putting these things on the calendar, going through all those details that you'll need to kind of shake out. But figuring out those details, kind of working out the logistics of who's going to do what and deadlines for getting things done. Just make sure all those boxes are checked as you're doing your planning. That way you will be able to host a successful event and kind of have everything ready to go. So there are 3 questions that we recommend that you all try to answer early on in that planning. And these are going to kind of help get you started early on and figure out where you need to go. So the first one is, where should you host the event? The next one is, when should you host the event? And then that third one is, who should you invite to the event? So we'll start with location. We'll start with that where. Existing ranges and clubs are one that we'll recommend. Not only do they have the benefit of kind of being that existing shooting facility, they've got the equipment and resources and shooting spaces and everything there, but they're also going to have other amenities like restrooms, some shelter and things like that. So look towards those existing ranges and clubs. If you don't have a relationship with one of the local clubs yet, try to build that relationship. Let us know if we can help with that. But those locations are really great to put on an event, just because they have a lot of the things that you're going to need, and it's already there and established on site. Another option, there's some state shooting ranges, so you can find those in Missouri and Illinois. Those are an option as well. Just make sure to check with kind of the area managers of those shooting ranges, or check with the agency who runs those, not only to figure out what facilities and amenities are going to be on site, so you know what they have and what you need, but also check with them to see if they have any special event regulations, restrictions, if you need to fill out any special forms for group size or things like that. So state ranges are an option. And then also you might have some local landowners that are either members within your chapter or just landowners that you all work with, possibly to do some habitat work. So they're an option as well, potentially as a location for a learn to shoot event. If you know somebody has a good property, good area for everybody to kind of spread out, shoot safely, and do all that, there's that option to have landowners kind of serve as offer their private land as a spot to serve for that learn to shoot event as well. One thing I do want to note, regardless of the location where you have that learn to shoot event, keep in mind we can help you by providing the certificate showing our Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever liability insurance. So there's an easy form that you can fill out. You or the landowner can fill that out, and we'll get our certificate of insurance coverage provided. So that's something we can do just to help with that liability coverage when it comes to hosting events at different locations. And then of course, make sure to have all people sign that participant waiver at the event. That way we make sure that they get that signed, and so if there's any issues with liability or any issues arise, we're covered, and you all as chapter volunteers are covered on that side. Other things, kind of some other on-site needs to consider. You can see that list there on the slide, but just keep those in mind as you choose your location, and keep comfort and safety in mind too. We want people to be comfortable in the environment where they're learning, and to feel safe. If they kind of don't have those two needs met, it's going to be really difficult for them to be engaged and be able to learn. So just keep that comfort and safety in mind when you're looking at that list of things that you want to have either at the facility you choose or things you want to try to bring on site when you host those events. Big things: shelter, shade, clean restrooms, water to drink, food if it's needed, if you have an event where you're going to be serving some food, and then just definitely that adequate space so everybody has room to train, has room to shoot. We've got safe zones of fire, things like that. So those are just some of those on-site needs to look at, to just, again, to keep in mind for comfort and safety for everybody. And then the next thing is choosing a date, so that when to host your event. There's a lot of things you can consider when you look at selecting that date for your event. Some things to take into consideration might be seasonal weather patterns. Kind of know if it's a season where we might have some, an unpredictable rain shower or something like that might make it a little difficult for your event, or require some additional shelter, things like that. Think about also special seasons for events. Think about volunteer availability. If you know who your instructors will be, you know who your volunteers and mentors will be, make sure to host the event at a time of year when they're going to be available as well. Think about youth seasons, youth hunting seasons. So as those start approaching, it's great to host a Learn to Shoot event as a youth hunting season is approaching. Great opportunity to get those kids out, get anybody out really, kids or new shooters alike, get them out, get them some experience, and then hopefully that'll help get them out in the field hunting this fall. So other things to keep in mind, school calendars, things like that. So again, there's a lot of things you can think about, but as you start pitting down those dates when you want to have your event, check other calendars, check around, make sure you won't have any big conflicts that'll potentially keep people from coming to your event. Another time, summer evenings. Families are often looking for summer things to do on summer evenings, ways to get out. So again, that's where maybe one of those family-oriented Learn to Shoot events comes in. Bring the whole family out to the range. So you can kind of see the picture was a family night at the range that one of our Missouri chapters did. And these are really well received. Families like getting out in groups, being able to bring everybody out to a family-friendly event that's safe and fun. So again, keep those summer evenings in mind, and keep those family events in mind too. One other thing to kind of mention is National Hunting and Fishing Day. So this occurs every year. It's every year on the fourth Saturday of September. This year it's on September 26th, but it's just kind of a day to bring awareness to hunting and fishing, to celebrate those things, and to take an opportunity to potentially do an event, some education and outreach that's focused on hunting or shooting. So National Hunting and Fishing Day is a day to kind of consider whether it's that day or a different one. Take advantage of that significance of those events, and advantage of that maybe additional promotion or additional coverage. There's a big local event happening and you can tie your event in with that. That's some great free promotion for you. And then one more thing to talk about before I turn it back over to Katie is inviting participants. So as you think about not just who to invite, but how many people to invite. Before we get to the who, let's talk about how many. So think about the instructors that you're going to have. Think about those great instructors that you're going to have coming to the event to help you put this on. How many of those are you going to have available? And that number of instructors you're going to have is going to determine the number of participants that you're going to have, be able to host, not just safely, but be able to host effectively at the event too. We don't want to dilute that instructor to participant ratio too much. Again, not just for safety, but for making sure we're able to give everybody that proper experience and make sure they're actually learning something when they're at that Learn to Shoot event with us today, or that when they're at that Learn to Shoot event. So again, just keep your number, how many participants you think you're going to be able to host at the event. When it comes to who, just think about who your chapter wants to focus on for that event. Again, a lot of our chapters do youth events. We've got some chapters now doing events more focused on new shooters. So not just youth, but adults too, who are new to shooting, want to get into hunting, learn a new skill. So there's those options as well. But so just think again about who you want to focus on, who your chapter wants to focus on. Another thing when it comes to kind of who to invite, think about if there's another event coming up that your chapter's doing. You could possibly use this Learn to Shoot event as a springboard for that event, or as a training event. If you know you're going to offer a youth hunt or a kind of new mentored hunt for new hunters, this is an option to do a training or a practice session with them before. That way, when they come to the hunt, they're a little more experienced, prepared, and a little more confident as well when they get out into the field. Some places to think about recruiting, just kind of be creative as you do that. You might use your typical outlets that you use in terms of recruiting, but there's a lot of other organization and groups out there. We've got some of those listed. Their members or their contacts might be interested in getting involved, not only to come to your events to participate, but maybe potentially come to these events as volunteers to get involved with the chapter as well. So think about maybe your local hunter safety classes, your places of worship, scout groups, 4-H groups, all that kind of stuff. So lots of opportunities for people out there, lots of audiences to reach. And so I think that's what I've got for inviting participants. And I'm going to kick it back over to Katie and let her go through the rest of the slides that we've got for everybody.
So yes, I get to talk about the stuff that we never hope happens, but could. One of the, and this is something I'll admit completely, until this pamphlet came out, I've been helping plan with events. This pamphlet came out 3 years ago, and until we had this, I had never thought about developing a safety and emergency plan. So any event you have, from a banquet to shooting sports to a youth pollinator event, it's always a good idea to have a safety and emergency plan. It's one of those things we never hope we have to use, but if we do, we're glad it's there. A few things when you're doing a Learn to Shoot event, some of the safety things, if the participants, whether it's you're providing the firearms or the participants are bringing their own, make sure to check every gun that comes in. I've seen it happen multiple times where grandpa is got an old gun and he's going to let, his grandkid shoot it. And it's a single shot that has no safety on that. That's a gun that would not be acceptable at one of our events. Or, we've all seen those old guns that come in that they shouldn't be getting shot because they haven't been cleaned in probably 20 years. So have all the firearms checked. Same with when the event is going on. My recommendation is, have a plan for the guns. Either the guns are in their case or the guns are on their gun racks. Don't have people carrying guns around. We know how it is. Kids get their guns, they start showing each other. It's hard enough for our volunteers to keep an eye on the shooters, yet alone some kid that's walking around with a gun behind us. That's just inviting, an accident. We never know if the gun's loaded or unloaded. So the best thing is, with guns, have a rule set up. It's either in the case or it's on the gun rack, or you're on the line shooting. You're not carrying it around. Same with, on that note, have a rule of who's handling the ammo. It's happened at DNR wing shooting clinics. It's happened at other, I haven't heard of anything, but we've all heard the stories of somebody put a 20 gauge in a 12 gauge shotgun, shot, it's fine. Then they put a 12 gauge in and the barrel explodes because the 20 gauge is still in there. So, making sure that the ammunition, we have a plan to make sure that there's no mix-ups. One of the biggest problems I see at Learn to Shoot and mentor hunts is not everyone is wearing their eyes and ears. Everybody at an event should be wearing their eyes and ears, from the participants to the volunteers to the parents. Most of those parents are less than, 30 feet behind the kids. They still need to have their eyes and ears on. And if there's pictures out, it just looks better. It's safety, but it also, if you got pictures of somebody clearly without any eyes behind a kid shooting, that's not a safe thing that we want to be promoting. Another thing with when you're developing a safety and emergency plan, make sure that somebody knows that if something goes wrong, it is they're going to call 911. I highly suggest having a volunteer, either the owner of the site or a volunteer that knows how to get there. be the one that calls 911, because most of our events are out in the middle of the boonies, and a stressed out parent who's driven out to this place in the middle of the country for the first time is not going to be giving good instructions to the operator if that's need be. Have a procedure, make sure that everybody knows where the first aid kits are if something happens, so we're not losing time looking for things. If somebody cuts themselves, they can go and know, all right, it's at the registration desk or it's at the cooking station or something like that. Same with, have an already developed plan. Most of these events are outside, so Mother Nature happens. Have a plan in place if lightning happens, of what we're going to do, when to call it, where to go, all of those things. And it's one of these, we hope you never have to use it, but if you do, you're going to be glad that you have that plan in place. So once you have all these safety things, you then get to go into the meat and bones of your Learn to Shoot event. Usually most Learn to Shoot events are either just shooting and only shooting, or they're kind of a field day event where there's multiple stations. I really like these field day events because at Learn to Shoot events, a lot of times if it's just shooting, what you'll see is the kids, they go up and they shoot on the line for 15 minutes, and then they go back and 3 groups go up to the line and shoot. So you've got those kids standing there for 30 to 45 minutes doing nothing, being bored. Use that time to have other, stations that we can teach them other conservation things, have a safety where they can see different types of shotguns. They can shoot air rifles or 20s, those are different types. Same with, it's a great time to have a station for them to clean all of your guns. All the volunteers probably have guns that need to be cleaned, have them bring in and have the kids learn how to clean guns like that. And then you can even get more creative and have slingshots, fishing. Call other conservation groups. There's absolutely no reason that we should not be working with local Ducks Unlimited, local Turkey Federation, local NRA, local shooting clubs. Have them come in, have turkey calls, duck calls. We're all in this together. We all know how hard it is to find volunteers. We all have the same mission. Use each other, and make it, we've got so many things. Your sky's the limit on your imagination. But stations are really good for the kids to keep them entertained, because they are not going to be able to shoot the entire time they're at an event, most likely. So this is other ways to, teach them other conservation skills, keep them entertained, and also keep it so they don't get bored. So when you've decided your stations, this is probably one of the biggest issues I hear a lot at events. It's either getting the participants or getting enough volunteers. Those are my 2 most common complaints I get, or issues that chapters have when they're putting these on. We do need to be selective within our volunteers, even though it is sometimes hard to find them. Above all, that person that is volunteering at your event has to be a safe, safety minded. They have to have safety always on the front of their what they're doing. They also need to have good ethics. I'm sure that everybody listening right now probably knows of at least one guy who would drop his hat in an instant and come help and volunteer, but the whole time he was there, he's going to be dropping cuss words left and right, or he might not be necessarily the safest person with a gun. Those people, even though they want to volunteer at an event like this is not the place for them, because this is a lot of these kids' first introductions to guns. So we need to hammer in safety, safety, safety. We also don't need parents getting offended by somebody that's cracking crude jokes in front of a 10-year-old. That is not appropriate. So, not every person that wants to volunteer is always going to be the best person or somebody you want actually volunteering. There are a few special roles you need to consider. Kim kind of talked about this. The coordinator, I've seen it a lot where the person in charge of the event is also trying to run registration or also trying to run shooting, and they keep on getting pulled away. If you're the person in charge and coordinating, your job for that day should be making sure everybody's where they need to be and putting out the fires as they come. It's too hard for you to do instructing and coordinating at the same time. Finding instructors and mentors, there are some for shooting. Somebody that's experienced. For Illinois, I'm going to share the links in the context to Sheldon Fairfield and Rich Lewis. They are the DNR wing shooting program instructors. There is a great resource in Illinois, a list of certified wing shooting instructors to reach out to. Same with NRA has a list of instructors. Hunter safety courses. Both Missouri and Illinois have hunter safety instructors that would be great people. These are the people that I suggest reaching out to. You also know, we know shooting coaches. If you work with the shooting team, reach out to the shooting coach. And you don't need a lot of shooting instructors if you're going to do these stations. You usually only need 3 or 4 instructors that can do 2 or 3 kids at a time, you know, working with them one-on-one and basis like that. But you also have people that are going to come forward that maybe are not comfortable with shooting. You can still utilize them, have them do other stations that aren't like fishing, or have them help with cooking, or have them run the registration desk. These people are able to pick up the slack so that a way the instructors that are teaching shooting don't have as much on their plate and can actually focus on the shooters instead of everything else. One I have not seen in Illinois, I've seen it in Iowa, I've heard of it in Iowa a lot. But one thing is, turn your event into a conservation leadership opportunity for youth, which we have a lot of shooting teams that our chapters sponsor. But usually what it is we write a check, we give them a check, and we say, have fun, and we never see those kids again. Those kids on those shooting teams are probably better shooters than most of the adults that are attending or helping out at these events. So use those kids, have those older kids be instructors to the youth. Not only are you going to be developing the leadership opportunities with the kids on the shooting team, you're also going to be building that partnership with the shooting team. It's going to be a give and take. But you're also going to be having those kids, those little kids that are learning to shoot. They're going to love working with an older kid. You know, they look up to those older kids. That's what they're going to be next. So it's a great way to use those shooting teams that you sponsor, get some more volunteers, and kind of build that partnership while developing not only one group of kids, but a second group of kids. Now, before the event, when I say before the event, most of these training events of the volunteers usually happen within the 20-30 minutes before the event starts. We're not saying you need to do a whole day training before this, but it really is important if you talk to your volunteers before the kids get there, so everybody has, knows the goals and knows that we're all on the same page. They also know an outline and a timeline of the event, so they know how the event flows, if they need to be wrapped up. Along with, this is very important, go over the Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever Youth Protection Guidelines, which are the exact same as the Boy Scouts guidelines. And that is that a kid and an adult are never in a one-on-one situation. So at no time there should never be a kid and a volunteer alone together. It should either be 2 kids and 1 adult, or 2 adults and 1 kid. It just helps protect us from if the worst should happen. Same with, make sure your volunteers realize that all kids have different learning styles. The EDOC, so that's the different styles. Some kids learn by seeing, some kids learn by being taught, like verbally instructed, some kids learn by having them demonstrated. Just know that not every kid's gonna learn the same. As always, safety, safety, safety. Make sure our volunteers know the tab K, the 4 rules of firearms. We need to hammer that into them, make sure that they're not only teaching it, but they're living it and living by example with the kids around. And then make sure everybody knows the emergency plans. If something goes wrong, who to go get. If you need an emergency first aid kit, where it's located. Just those items like that to help, if anything does go wrong, to make things go smoother and as safe as possible. Now, once you get all that fun stuff, you've obviously got to promote this event to get people here. There are, in the world of technology has kind of become a great ally to promoting events. If you share your information with the outreach coordinators, we'll post them on our social media, our Instagram and Facebook pages. We'll share those flyers. You can tag the state accounts in your posting. If you're posting something on Facebook, make sure to share it multiple times. Some chapters will put a flyer up 3 months before the event, and then they never post it again. You need to post it probably every 2 to 3 weeks, so it keeps on popping up on people's news feeds. Same with, if you want, you can take advantage of actually paying for advertising on Facebook and Instagram, where you can actually select the cities that you're advertising around, the age group, whether you want females or males or both. You can kind of tailor it to the people that you want coming to your event. Same with Along with that, you can also post it on the Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever event center. And if you do that, headquarters will send out a free email blast of your event to all members in your chapter's county or area. They will also send it out to other counties. If there's no chapter in that area, you just need to reach out to your regional rep because they need to approve that, or your outreach coordinator can approve that too. You just need to get some permission from a staff member to do that. Local media, newspaper, radio, community event boards, those are always good things to put it on. I would not recommend using that as your main source of promotion though, especially the newspapers. They kind of seem to be going out a little bit. When you do have events, get into the habit of getting those participants' contact information. Get their names, get their email addresses, get their mailing addresses, and build a list. Start using it to promote at next year's event. Start using it to promote at your banquets. Get these people to start being retention and retained customers coming back again and again and again. Finally, if you need help making flyers, ticketprinting.com works with us. If you look in the bottom, there are examples. They will make free social media posts for you that you can download and use. They'll also make flyers if you want. Use them to your advantage. They've got some nice templates that are probably going to be a lot easier and quicker for you to use than trying to make something yourself. I've used them multiple times, so I'm quite a big fan of them. Once you get all the prep work done and you come to the day of the event, you do have, oops, I'm sorry. Once you get to the day of the event, things to do, have your agenda ready and make sure that every volunteer has a copy of that so they know what's going on. So you don't have them standing around being like, what do I do now? That talk that we talked about. Your registration desk, I suggest having it straight in the front where everybody's walking in so they can see it so they're not standing around going, where do I go? This is where everybody should fill out their waivers. And I mean everybody, parents, volunteers, the kids. This is where you can also collect the information for future events. Another miscellaneous thing, that might be a good place to have your firearms checked because they're all going to come up there. You can get the guns checked right there to make sure everything is safe. When you're doing the event, a good idea, especially if your chapter has matching shirts because of banquets, have everybody wear something that's matching, that's a volunteer. So it's very identifiable for participants to know who they can go up to for help. Once you get everybody there, most chapters I see do this, you do your opening remarks, go over the timelines, let even the participants know where the first aid kit is or any safety items that they need to be made aware of. The last thing on, things to consider that are kind of miscellaneous, and I'm a big fan of this, is having a lunch at the event. And having a lunch for everyone, parents, siblings, everybody that comes. Hot dogs are not that expensive. A lot of our events are hosted in areas that not all the participants are going to be of the best economics. They might be struggling a little bit. So it's just another way to give back to the community and make sure that the kids have a good meal, helps make sure that they're more engaged, because if they're hungry, they're not going to be engaged in our events. So I'm always a big fan of having some food there for the kids because we don't know their backstories of what is going on. It's just one more service you can do for the community. There are some forms that you do need to fill out. I'm not going to go too much into detail with these because they are in your firearm guide that we're going to be sharing, and Kim kind of went over them. We do have a new form for the Learn to Shoot events. This is different from last year. We did not plan on changing it this year, but COVID-19 happened. So there is a new waiver form that everyone needs to fill out. It does have a COVID clause in it now. We do have the volunteer insurance form. This is a form that needs to be submitted 1 business day before. It needs to have all the volunteers' names on it. And I understand a lot of people, don't stress out about this one too much. Don't fret about this, because I do have a lot of volunteers that fret about it. Just go ahead and put everybody that you think you could possibly come on there and submit it. If somebody shows up the day of and says, I want to volunteer, and they're not on that form, it's okay. This is just kind of a preemptive thing. It still needs to be submitted in with, as many people as possible, but it's not the end of the world if you miss somebody. Last one is certificate liability. If you need to provide proof, depending if it's a state ground or if it's some landowner and they want to know, this one does need a little more turnaround time. We suggest 7 to 10 days because it has to go to the insurance company, and they will make you a certificate that you can provide showing that you do have coverage. It's not required, but if you need to use it, that form is going to be in the firearm guide. Few other considerations when you're planning this. These are just things that if you don't do them, it's not the end of the world, but it's kind of nice. Everybody loves, kids love presents, adults love presents. We all love getting free little goodies. We are working right now. We are working on updating the youth membership so the kids get a little more out of it. We're trying to jazz that up. You're probably going to be hearing some changes about that down the line. So, you know, Ring, Neck, and Whistler memberships are always great. It's also, the way I say it is, you're paying $10 to get a free contact information for compared to the $35 that, you know, for the memberships when it comes to banquets, because those youth will get the invite just like the adults do. If you've got any future events, make sure you're promoting them. I mean, you've got people that are already interested in you, show them the next event and have that flyer ready. And then last, certificate of appreciation. You can find these on the chapter resource portal. Pretty easy thing. You can just print them out, sign it, and the little kids, they're going to run around waving those all day. I've seen it so many times. It's amazing how excited a little kid can get over a piece of paper. Now, once you've done your event, there are a few other things. You know, report it to Pheasants Forever. It really does help when you guys report your event. This is how we're able to grow and expand. Same with submit your memberships if you gave out youth memberships. Thank you cards go so long of a way. I know I don't get them very much, but when I do, I love it when the kids send thank you cards. So your supporters, your volunteers really appreciate it anytime a handwritten card comes. Same with, if you need press releases, send them to the news, put them on promote your event, show that you did it, put it on social media, show the community what you are doing with their dollars that they give you at the banquet. Because the more you show that, the more likely people are willing to donate at your next banquet. And then finally, it doesn't necessarily have to be in person. You can do it through email. But 1 to 2 weeks after the event, kind of reminisce and go, what worked and what didn't. What might have worked 10 years ago when you did a youth shoot doesn't work now. That's okay. We can change it. Your event should, most likely, if you're doing it right, your event should adapt and change over time, because you're going to find what works and what doesn't. And it's okay to try something new and it not work. You don't need to do it the next year, but go over it while it's still fresh in your mind. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to open this up in just a second. So if you do have some questions, because I couldn't see our chat bar while this going, we thank you again for everybody coming. Our next webinar is going to be August 25th with Drew Larson. It's going to cover the Youth Pollinator Habitat Program. So if you're interested in that, we'll send out, some emails before reminding everybody, but that will be our next one. And if you think of anything after this event, you're always welcome to reach out to me and Kim. And I am going to open this up to chat in just a second. Let me see.
Katie, while you do that, we did have one question that just came in from Scott. He asked, has anyone hosted an event during COVID-19? So with everything going on with COVID-19. Katie, I can let you talk to that in terms of what Illinois has done. I know there have been a couple events in Missouri. We do have some chapters who are planning those events. The big thing, I think it just depends on where those events are happening and what the circumstances are like surrounding COVID-19 in those local communities. I know for our chapters here in Missouri, the big thing is making sure kind of to follow those local regulations. If there are any regulations or restrictions put in place locally by the local government, state government, or federal government, kind of all those regulations, the big thing is following those. If you are unable to follow those regulations when you host an event, then our recommendation is to not have it. If those local recommendations and guidelines can be followed, keeping Safety's paramount in this. We want to make safety, we talk all about safety with firearms, making sure events are safe in terms of firearms. We want to make them safe in terms of COVID-19 and some of these other unforeseen things that might happen too. So short answer, yes, we've hosted those events, but we're doing so with a lot of thought and precautions put towards those to make sure that everybody that comes is safe and has that good experience. So Katie, you might have a little bit more to add for kind of the Illinois side of things.
So the first event, I need to double check with them, but the first event should be happening this weekend. We did send out, our regional rep sent out the best guide practices documents. Those are, if you look at them, mostly aimed towards banquets, but they do have some good points in there if you are going to do an event. Things like documenting what you are doing via photography, taking pictures of people wearing the mask, taking pictures of you sanitizing the guns between each use, taking pictures of, setting up and how you are making, signs promoting social distancing. That's something that, kind of can cross over with both events. The instructors are going to have to wear masks, obviously, when we're doing this now. It does promote, put a new pressure on these events. My way of thinking of it is, if it's great, and I understand we all want to go together, and I just had to do my wedding this Saturday, and it was all stressful because I had money involved and couldn't get out, and I was worried the whole time of what could go wrong. But we can do it safely. We just need to take a few extra steps. If you ask me that question about mentor hunting and learn to hunt, I'm still trying to figure that out. But shooting sports, we can do it safely. If you got questions of it, run it by us. But as long as it is allowed within your county and your state, we can do events. We just got to take a couple extra steps. I did make it so everybody can, if you have a question, there are a few people that are muted, but if you do have a question, you should be able to speak now. I saw there was 2 chats. Did I miss anybody else?
Nope, those are the only ones that came in through chat. And then Katie, if you want to stop sharing your screen for a second, I'll pull up that event planning guide real quick. I'll share that. Get that up real quick. All right. Can you see that on your end?
Give it a second. There you go.
There, perfect. So for those of you on, if you haven't seen this yet, this is just that event planning guide that Katie was kind of talking about. This was sent out, and this is something we can send as a resource as well when we kind of send out the recording and various things after the webinar tonight. But it's a really helpful guide. It gives just some considerations for some of those things you might not think of. So if you do have an event, it's as safe as possible. And appears as safe as possible. So everybody knows they're in a good environment. So okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Katie. Just wanted to share that so people could see what it looks like. And I know no other questions have come in through the chat.
If anybody has any additional questions. All right, well, like we said, we very much appreciate you guys giving your evening. I will probably late afternoon, maybe Friday morning, we will get this webinar recording out to you along with the documents. We're also gonna include some lists for, promotion, other sites you can promote with, other groups you can reach out to for help, along with a few other grants that we may know of regarding shooting sports. So just a few documents, we'll share those with you either late tomorrow afternoon or Friday morning. But as always, if anything comes up or any questions, reach out to Kim or I. It's literally our job. It's what we're here for. So we'll help you in any way we can. But thank you, everybody. And we hope you all have a good rest of the evening.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. And like Katie said, just holler if there's anything we can do to help.
Have a good night.
Bye, thanks everybody.